Hello YouTube, it's RainingCardGames and welcome to the final episode of Atlantean Chronicles. The last chapter. We have come quite a way from normal summon Abyss Soldier pass. I was not expecting the deck to take this route, and yeah, we've had highs, we've had a lot of lows. We've had plenty of in-betweens, and it now culminates in one final episode. So, before I go ahead and reveal what on earth we're doing, if you would be so kind as to like, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe. It would greatly help out the channel. Now, let's talk about the final build for our Atlantean deck. I went through a lot of trials and tribulations. What do I want to go with? We obviously had some success with that little Marincess side quest. And the thought process was, okay, maybe this is pretty strong. And right now, even in the current metas, as it's still shaping up as it would look, it's a rogue contender. There's obviously the Umi variant, and then of course the one that we kind of left off to the side, which is Mermail Atlantean. Now, the last option, Mermail Atlantean, I opted not to go for. We just simply did not have the card pool strong enough. We are missing some critical pieces for that strategy to be viable, i.e. we are short on some Abystius, which we could have gone for, but we were also short of Abyss Pike, Abyssalacia the Link. We are missing quite a few important pieces, and Gund as well, that can't really make Mermail Atlantean feasible for us. If we had those pieces, I would think this would have been one of our strongest options. But we don't, so we have to make do with other options. And those two being Marincess and Umi. Now, in terms of what we are going with, this is going to be the deck that we are going with. Now, as you're looking at it, yep, it is going to be an Umi build. We are going full on based on last episode's pulls. We had added a little more strength for Umi. We have those hand traps, which could have potentially gone to Marincess, but honestly, looking at what we have now, I'm sticking with Umi. The Marincess deck, don't get me wrong, very strong, very consistent, lots of recoverability, but the Atlanteans that I had in there kind of just felt there. Yes, they had some integrity with like Marincess Triangle and everything, and I was able to, utilize that as a secondary option, but they didn't really feel integral to the strategy. I could have easily just swapped them out, thrown in more hand traps or more cards to just help me win, which honestly would have been a better case for building a stronger Marincess deck. So that's why we've settled on Umi Control as the final build for my Atlantean core. It's the strongest option that I have, where I feel that the Atlanteans are actually contributing to the strategy. They're not just there as a supplemental tiny part of an engine, and, you know, it still makes normal summon Deep Sea Diva a viable option. Now, how consistent that goes, we'll see, because if I can set up a full board in terms of establishing Kairyu-Shin with Umi on the field, and then whatever other supplements, be that an Abyss Megalo, or having the ability to OTK on the crackback using the Atlanteans, we'll see how that happens. The deck does have some consistency issues, which I think can be alleviated a bit, but honestly, it's also the power level of the deck. Like I mentioned, Mermail Atlantean seems to be the highest ceiling for Atlanteans, which we couldn't quite achieve with this series, but I think we've met a nice balance with Umi. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this deck for 9 rounds of dueling. And we're going to see how it goes. We're going to see what our win ratio is when we really run it through the grinder. So sit back, relax, and let's see how the deck performs. Alrighty, so for match number 1, we are going up against Scareclaw, and it looks like we are going to have a full-on Umi open. We have Electric Jellyfish and Kairyu-Shin to set up on the field. We negate the Harpy's Feather Duster, and then Mind Control gets dropped. So it turns out we are playing a going second Scareclaw, and they pretty much opened all the tools they needed to break apart my board, which is unfortunate. I was not really expecting to go up against a deck game 1 fully set up to take on my field, and we promptly get hit in the face 3 times and OTK'd. Yeah, so game number 2, we end up going directly into the Kairyu-Shin thanks to a Legendary Ocean. We do have a little bit of back row to hopefully deal with anything, and yeah, we get hit by a Hey Trunade. All of the going second tools just seem to be glued to my opponent's hand. I get Santa Claus, and I lose my Legendary Ocean, so it's not great, but at least we are able to survive through the battle phase, and I do have a Deep Sea Diva in hand. I end up normal summoning, getting out the Atlantean Prince sending a Dragoon so I can get into the Megalo line and try to pop the field a little bit. I also can Synchro climb up into Aura Whale to hopefully clear the board, but it doesn't work. And I get Santa Claus. I try to Torrential, but I get Doggerond, and the game is over when I get beat over by a Kaiju. Alrighty then, for match number 2, we are going up against Adamantipator, and we get to have a full setup with Umi. We have the Kairyu-Shin hit the field. We are able to use our Bahamut to get out totally awesome, as well as having a Kraken in hand. My opponent brings out the Kyoto Waterfront and the Fenrir, and I get Kaiju'd, and now, interestingly enough, they are basically bringing all of these amazing going second tools. I'm going up against a lot of decks that have going second tools in the first game. Now, what's interesting here is because Kyoto Waterfront's on the field, Gameciel actually becomes a very scary prospect in terms of going first or second, because it's also an Omni-Negate that banishes. But however, as this is going on and on, my opponent was not really paying attention to Yugioh's play call, and they actually lose to time. So we go into game number 2, and we are able to combo off. We are able to set up a little bit, as well as get our Abyss Megalo onto the field. We are able to use the Coral Anemone to bring back the Electric Jellyfish, so we can special out our Kairyu-Shin, so we have Umi set up, and we also drew the 2 anti-spells that we drew sided in. We get Kaiju'd, but my opponent scoops. Alrighty, for match number 3, we're going up against Gold Pride, one of the newer decks that have just appeared in the previous set, and we just go with a very basic, totally awesome pass, but we do have hand traps and a set imperm to deal with anything that my opponent tries to throw at me. Zeus tries to hit the field, I negate it so I can have my own Zeus, and I recycle the Toad, and I keep my Bahamut on the field. I imperm in the end phase so nothing happens. And then, luckily, because Bahamut's still in the field, I can bring back the Toad. I have to negate the Toad to prevent any further extension. but I'm still able to hit the field with an Abyss Megalo. Megalo gets his little Abyss scale so we can equip, and we clean up game number 1. Game number 2, we're going second, but luckily we've opened quite a few hand traps. I'm able to ash the Punk Engine in the Gold Pride deck. They start to push forward, and I am just slowly counting all those summons so we can hit the field with a big old rock. You gotta love it. I activate Fish Sonar. I try to bait out any negation with my Deep Sea Diva, which I do hit a Veiler. We end up going with our Droplet, and I use my area to bring out the Dragite. Luckily, I do have waters in the graveyard, so that Spell Negate is live. We never pulled this card, but hey, we can still use it in the finale to witness the power. And they keep on beating over it, but my area is still in the field, so I can keep on summoning it back and recycling it, which is actually really, really nice. Eventually, my area does get cleared, so that gets me into my Deep Sea Diva line. I get a free token. Cool, interesting. And I lose my Diva, but I still have the Print, which I ash to prevent the trap from dealing with it, and then I bring out the Megalo. Megalo clears out the gigantic Nibiru token, which is what I was hoping for. I equip, I then use his effect so I can attack twice, and then I punch in for a bunch of damage. My opponent draws, tries to activate the Gold Pride, and scoops. We are going up against Dinosaur with some of the new support that has recently come out in the Transcendrakes. So, this is going to be fun. Dinosaur is another deck that is really good at going second. We're able to deal with the Soul Eating Oviraptor to prevent any nasty lines with UCT or anything. We get a Toad onto the field as well as a Kairu Shin, and now we are sitting pretty. They try to beat over my Toad, I let it go, I let it die, and I recycle a little bit so I can have some follow-up for next turn, and they bring out the gigantic Synchro, which when summoned from the graveyard becomes basically indestructible. So this is now going to be a very daunting prospect. I pop it, not realizing that I should have read it, it brings itself back, and now I am facing a gigantic Chungus that can't be destroyed or targeted by card effect. My White Aura Whale can't do anything. So this is now a very precarious situation. I end up losing my Megalo, but I draw Fish Sonar, which gets me access to my Mega Fortress Wheel, which I can attack directly. So we take game number 1. Game number 2, my opponent scoops to an Ash. Easy. Alright, for the next matchup, we're going up against the new other deck, Vanquish Soul. This is a very good deck. I am not going to lie. Luckily, we do get to go first. Hitting the Ash is not great, so we just end on an Aria, hope that it can float out. We Ash their first initial summon, and then comes out the Rock of the Link 1. Luckily, with Kairishin on the field, I can try to stop any special summoning, but Imperm does prevent that. Once again, I have another Ash for an answer, and then with the Negation offline, I can now sit pretty on my Kairishin and take game number 1. You can't summon Vanquish Souls if you can't play around Gozen match. We have an Imperm, and we also have a High Priest Feather Duster to deal with any back row that's set. Look at that, 2 back row, I can clean it up. Now it's just a matter of seeing if I can't use my Kairishin potentially to special out in a way to deal with it, but I end up going with the Mermail line so that I can get to Megalo and try to splash out of it and then special summon my Electric Jellyfish later on using Coral Anemone. My board gets dealt with and popped a bit, but I can still reach up to the Anemone. I am able to establish the Kairishin onto the field. In the draw phase, I get my trap activation, but that gets negated and banished, so now I don't have Umi on the field, so my opponent is free to special summon all the non-waters. Yeah, it's not looking good. It is not looking pretty, and I get my Electric Jellyfish spun away. Nibiru is not the card I wanted. So we go to game number 3. D-Shifter. Hurts so bad, I just establish a White Aura Whale onto the field. Hopefully it gets destroyed so that I can bring it back. It's also just a big old Chungus. I get my Torrential Tribute dealt with, which is unfortunate, but I still have my big Chungus on the field. Can't really battle over anything. I lose my Umi buff, and it is a losing situation from here on out now. Unfortunately, that D-Shifter really just threw a wrench into my plans, and we end up losing this match. Alrighty, next match, we are going up against Bystial Chaos. Just Bystial good stuff with Chaos good stuff. Luckily, though, we are going first, and we are going uninterrupted. So I'm actually able to go up into an Abyss Skyos, make them nice and big. I get the Bubble Reef out so that I can draw some potential good stuff like a Hand Trap. I don't, but I do draw a Stealth Attack, which is nice. And every time a card gets banished, Marincess Great Bubble Reef is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't bother negating because my scale will passively negate that, so I can still keep my Abyss Skyos on the field as a big annoying jerk. He gets dealt with, and I can't respond, so we lose that first game. Game number 2, we ain't playing around, we just stick down our Kairyu-Shin. Yeah, we get trolled, but I honestly don't care. I've got a Gozen match in 2 forms on the field with an Umi. You can special summon 1 Dark, but even if it's big enough to beat over, you can't beat over Stealth Attack. We are now in a winning situation, which is great. I bring out my Atlantean Prince so I can start to climb up to get my plays going, and Megalo will be able to clean up shop. We go to game number 3. We have a Nub Rock. We have a Forbidden Droplet. We have tools to go second. I drop the Gigantic Rock, and that pretty much ends the turn right there. So excellent. Now it's just a matter of seeing if we can't clear that token. And yeah, another Nub Rock. We've got 2 rocks. It's not great. We get our Deep Sea Diva dealt with. So this is going to be tricky, but I do have another Nibiru, so if my opponent extends too much, I can take it, but they don't. Alrighty, we are now going up against Galaxy Photon. We go through our standard Umi setup, so we have a Negate, we have Gozen Match, we have Protection, and I have an Ash Blossom. We try to stop all of our opponent's plays so that they cannot special summon, and with Gozen on the field, you can't really XC summon anything with one singular light, and with a Megalo, we clean up shop, we go on to game number 2. This time around, they're going first, they're starting their setup. I have no forms of interruption, but I do have a Gamciel, which is great, so I can deal with their Galaxy Photon Lord, deal with that monster negate. I do get hit by an Ash, which is unfortunate. I go into Gungnir so I can clean up shop a bit, and then just hit in for some damage, and I get hit by the Karibo. Well, the Galaxy Karibo. Just when things were going so well, we get hit by the Gigantic 8 into the 9. We're able to slow down the plays using Gozen Match in the form of Kairyu-Shin, so we can keep in this duel with the Stealth Attack too. And now we just have a singular Atlantean Dragoons on the field. If I can keep him on the field for a bit, we can potentially do something. He just opts to keep the big old Chungus, and it's not looking, honestly, it's not looking that great. There comes out the full armor. He tries to pop. I end up using my Imperm, but now I am out of interaction. I lose my Umi, and now we move on to game number 3. Game number 3, I am going uninterrupted with my Deep Sea Diva line, so I'm able to get out an Abyss Megalo, so I can have a monster negate at least equipped to him, and I have an Aria to float for next turn. And I set up a full back row. I get hit by Harpy's Feather Duster. Threw a wrench in my plan, deals with all of my interaction with my opponent, so I am just a sitting duck to get punched in the face by a giant Xyz monster, which inevitably is what happens. Alright, so now we're going up against Dark World. This is actually game number 2. My opponent kind of just played 1 card in the first game and scooped, and yeah, similar situation. So the Dark World matchup was a very easy match. Let's see how Zombie World does. We do set up our Gozen Match in Kairyu-Shin, and guess what? That is actually enough. They cannot really do anything with one singular Dark on the field, so it's pretty easy. They end up scooping. We go to game number 2. They only set up a Zombie World with 2 Back World. I get my protection out for my Deep Sea Aria, and yeah, my Deep Sea Diva just gets polyed away with the Prince. So now we're facing a Garua. I don't have too much follow-up. I mean, if I can survive a turn, I can potentially make something happen. But the Belladrach on the field is the really dangerous one. I make up an Abyss Dweller, seeing if I can have some interaction. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But anyway, game number 3. We set up a kind of okay board. It's not exactly what I was wanting, but we do have the protection with Stealth Attack 2 and a little bit of follow-up.
Once again, though, we get hit by the Harvey's Feather Duster. That card really does hurt if I don't have Toad specifically on the field to deal with it, which is the case, and now we start to see the Field Swarm. I have an Electric Jellyfish, but it is not enough. And that is a wrap. We end the record 4-5 for the day. The overall record for Atlantean Chronicles ends up being 40-52. We did catch up a little bit with wins in the latter half of the series, but ultimately, I think this deck has more or less met its ceiling.
Oh. Well, I tried.
In the end, I did.
Yeah, I honestly, when I was recording all of these, there were also a lot of games where match 1 was filmed, or game 1 was filmed, game 2 was filmed, and then the opponent dropped game 3, or vice versa, lost connection, so on and so forth. But all in all, even if I manipulated the result, it still would have come out to more or less what we saw today.
So now that the moon is gone, the water encroaching on the land is reduced by half.
But all of my monsters!
A 4-5 record isn't great. But we also, it's not terrible either. We didn't lose every single match in the same place as well. There are some big pitfalls to the deck. Some cases, I will just brick, where I cannot have any feasible way to really stick Kaioshin onto the field. That's where maybe an extra legendary ocean would have helped, maybe not. Who knows? And there's also some instances where I'm just drawing the Megalos and the stuff, and it's just hoping on a dream. Obviously, having the Abyss Scale of Mizuchi would have been a better one than a Kraken, because that gives us a spell negate. So there are obviously some key pieces that are missing that could have helped us. Ideally, maybe I should have gone into getting some Pot of Extravagance, but at the same time, I also do use my extra deck. This is not a full-on Umi control where it's you don't care about the extra deck. Stealth Kraken also would have been a great addition, would have really helped us with the rank 4 pool. But that is the nature of a sealed only challenge. Gosh, I've done this with the 6 Samurai. Where we didn't get everything we wanted, but we still built something pretty good. Same thing with sealed only Dragoonity. We built a very competitive Dragoonity deck, but we didn't get everything that we wanted. Once again, third time's a charm, same result happened. We didn't get everything, but we gave it our best effort, and we were caught out on a low tide. So that's gonna do it. Honestly, I was not expecting all of this to end the way it did. Me pivoting towards Umi and actually really liking this. Normally, I really like that more higher combo intensive boom 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 boom. Hence, like, 6 Samurai, Dragoonity, combo oriented. But then, I started Atlantean Chronicles visualizing that I'd go into an Atlantean Mermail. We're going water combo. Use that incredible engine that the Atlanteans provide to really, vomit out a disgustingly awesome board. But dovetailing into the more control aspect, a slower game style, I do like it as well. It's simplistic, and yeah, it flows like water. But it's draining too. I always, at the end of every time I do one of these challenges, it takes a lot out of you. Financially and just mentally. Not being able to pilot it optimally for the first several episodes until you finally pull a piece that makes it all kind of tick a little bit. So will I do another sealed only series? I know I've read in comments of other past videos through this series and others, will you do another one? Are you going to do X deck, Y deck? The long-term answer for this one is, honestly, I do not know. I always take a break in between these challenges just to kind of reset and see if my mindset's ready to jump back into it again. I have a couple ideas. So potentially we might do another sealed only series. There's no guarantee. We might do something similar, but only time will tell. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for coming along with this lovely chronicled journey with the Realm of the Sea Emperor structure deck. Did not expect it to come out this way, but here we are at the end of another series. So, with that all being said, RCG is going to cast off one final time in Atlantean Chronicles. Thank you so much for tagging along on this journey.